Welcome back to Borderline. We are just days/hours, depending on when you watch or download this. Just days or hours away from the biggest week of the year, hands down, in the sport of cornhole. We talk about the nationals, equating them to majors. We talk about the pro shootouts. You and I love the pro shootouts, the single elimination, the round limitations. But this is the world championships. I mean, this is as big as it gets. I mean, this is what defines careers. It's one of those things. It's like being a Super Bowl champion. You win a world championship, and you will always have that with you for the rest of your career as a professional cornhole player. So I mean, it is the biggest time of the year, and so we're probably gonna be a little bit more cornhole focused here this week than we normally are, just because we gonna kind of prep worlds a little bit. And then next week, I think you and I talked about it. Maybe I'll bring my camera and that kind of stuff. Maybe we'll be on location next week. But anyway, first things first. Of all the times, right? You and I were talking about this. It's part of just getting. It's part of just getting older, right? It's part of being a man. Part of having a job. Part of being an adult. Part of being a dad. Whatever. Things just never like. There's never a good time for any of these things in adult life to come up. So I'm sorry to hear about you and Julie's cat not doing well in the emergency room. Literally, we are just about ready, all of us, to descend upon Rock Hill. You've got to deal with this. Then all of a sudden, a couple comes up and wants to buy your house. You go under contract. It's like of all the weeks, right? We've had all summer. We've had all summer for these things.
And now
you're just hours away from going to Rock Hill. And all this happens. So I'm sorry. I mean,
it's really tough, man, because it's really killing me to not be here for all of this. I mean, if
Julie's got to deal with all of it.
Yeah, and it's just it's such a dick move, right? Like see ya. Sorry about that. Here, you handle it all. I've got to go talk about cornhole for 2 weeks. And I mean, no offense to the cornhole people, but in the grand scheme of things, what I'm going to do is pretty simple for me. We do it all the time. It's not like something very difficult and hard. I mean, we're not really part of the setup crew. We're not doing all the hard work behind the scenes. We're not doing a lot of those things. We're talking, right? And I get to go do that for 10 days while she has to deal with moving while we move 3 states away.
Yeah. And by the time we're done at Rock Hill, you're just going to be meeting her at the new house.
Yeah, I'm leaving. I won't be coming back to Atlanta. I'll be going to Wilmington, which is where we're moving. Yeah. And then, we have to deal with a cat, and look, there's certain people that they're going to be watching this going, well, that's no big deal, right? So what? It's a cat, but if you're like us, I mean, a pet's part of your family. It's not just some creature that roams around your house that you pay attention to every now and then. Yeah. So it's been pretty traumatic, and, to have to go see him every day, and the state that he's in. And, the vet told us that only 10% of cats actually survive the numbers that he came in with. And so the fact that he's apparently a little fighter, who knew? Because he's a little, not a big cat.
Because he's a cat. That's every cat that we've ever had. Same thing. You're right. They will fight until the very end.
Yeah, and he's doing that, and so but we have to, it's been a while now. It's an emergency vet. Those that have gone through it, it's not inexpensive, right?
I know that's the other thing. It's such a tough decision, right? I mean, we
have to start making that decision, and that's a tough.
It's the worst. I think we're actually we may be done with animals. Kathy and I were just talking about this, because we are down to, I don't want to say down to, but we have 2 animals left. We have Jovi, our dog, who's about 3, and then we have Georgie, our cat, who's about I think about the same age as yours, about 7. But it's so hard, right? I mean, it's really difficult, especially when you get to our age, and especially with our kids being older and living in different places. We want to be able to travel, but anyway, dude, I don't want to bog you down.
No, it's a bummer. It's a bummer, and it's just the worst possible time for all this to happen.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, great. We should be so happy like that. We were just talking about that last night. We should be ecstatic. Hey, we're finally moving. We finally got through this year-long process with the house and all the stuff that we've had to deal with that. And here it is. It's finally happening. But it's happening the week I go to Worlds, and then all of a sudden our pet has to go in the it's just, what in the world, man? That's just part of being an adult, I guess. I don't know. It's crazy.
It is. When you and I were on the phone this week, I told you. I mean, you almost just have to have that mindset that there's just always something. Like enjoy everything. Just know in the back of your mind there's always going to be something. You always got to deal with it.
I'm telling you, that's why I'm the way I am, because I know it's coming. It's right around the corner. I know it's coming. Right. I'm that way. And I think people get put off by that sometimes. I'm like, dude, you tell me how I'm wrong. Right. Like, that's how I feel. Like, you tell me I'm not right. Life's waiting for you around the corner.
Yeah.
Right. And it's always going to throw you something.
We can still enjoy things.
Sure.
Hey, our neighbors, speaking of everything, I mean, we talk about the weather, right? And here in Charleston, woke up this morning, 81 degrees. That's fine. I can handle 81. 92% humidity.
Yeah. Just sits on top of you.
Yeah. You wake up and the windows are wet. So speaking of bad timing, so once I get done like scraping off the windows so I can actually see outside and get rid of all the dew and all the moisture, our neighbors have had an HVAC company descend upon them, ripping out all of their ductwork and everything. So obviously these people, and we really like our neighbors. I feel bad for them. Like really, I want to get a hold of them and make sure they're okay after we're done here. But
That's awful.
Actually, I'll have Kathy do it. They like her better. But I want to make sure they're all right and that they've got an AC, because they obviously didn't have it last night. Something must have happened last night, and they are total gut job. But of all the times to do it, because your air conditioning, right? We talk about timing. Your air conditioning never goes out in November, right? It never goes out in February.
No.
In Charleston, your air conditioning always goes out in July or August.
And it's
without a doubt.
And for those of you that aren't from this area or aren't from kind of the deeper south, where you get a little bit in from the wind that the ocean breezes give you, that humidity, 81 doesn't sound hot, but with 92% humidity, you're sweating bullets the moment brutal. You walk outside.
Yeah. I had to go take the car in, and fortunately, believe it or not, the auto shop is literally down the street from us. So Kathy said, you want to take it or you want me to take it? And I said, I'll drive it down there. She said, okay. She said, well, I'll come pick you. We got a little golf cart. She's like, I'll come pick you up in the golf cart. So I said, okay, great, perfect. And so I go down there and drop off the car, and I just start walking home. And she calls me. She's like, "Are you ready?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I've walked halfway home now. I'm like sweating, like my pants and my shirt are wet." I'm like, "Yeah, you can come get me anytime.
Feel free." Yeah.
No,
it's brutal.
Yeah. All right, we've got a ton of stuff to talk about. I don't even know where to start. So, MVP ballots, Rookie of the Year ballots, Breakout of the Year or Breakout Player of the Year. All these have to be turned in this week. I've filled mine out. If you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. If you want
we can talk about it. I filled mine out. I can't quite remember exactly who I put where, but I'm pretty sure if you bring up the contestants, I will remember what order I had them in. But we can talk about it.
Teams. We got a lot to talk about with teams. I think we're going to kind of take a different approach today because there are some people who watch our show who are not pros. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to just kind of give the final 8 teams and talk about that just a little bit. Super Bowl, we can go through that, and then we've got to leave time today for on, off, and in, and for our power rankings. We always do this, and we've started already. I mean, here we are, almost 10 minutes into the show. I haven't even really started yet. So we've got.
That's what we do, Jeff.
Okay, so yeah, all right. So a little bit of cornhole first here. If you're comfortable discussing the ballot,
sure.
Let's do it. I know some people don't like to do it. Some people do. So I don't know if I'm real comfortable doing it, but I just feel like I'd like to be transparent about it because I know when we go to Worlds, it happened last year because the voting was so close. A few people asked me, "Who'd you vote for? Who'd you vote for?" So I don't mind talking about it. But all right, let's start with Breakout Player of the Year first. And okay. I don't have all the candidates, but I can tell you the 3 that I chose because basically I think there were 5 candidates, and so I can tell you my 3. So first, and this won't surprise anybody who listens to the show, I voted number 1, Jake Gore. Number 2, Alan Rawls, because Alan did come out of nowhere. No big win, but still, come on, dude crushed it this year. And then Ian Cripps, he's a guy who we have not talked. He is not a guy that we've talked about a lot on the show, but without a doubt, Ian really had. Not quite the breakout year maybe that Jake had, because Jake, I looked it up today. Jake Gore, 14 years old. He was in 2 singles Final Fours. That's amazing. I mean, again, couldn't get the win, but 2 Final Fours. But shout out to Ian Cripps. So that was my 3: Jake, Alan, Ian. Do you remember? I know you don't have yours in front of you. I wrote mine down before I submitted it because I knew I wouldn't remember.
But first off, let me say, like, I didn't have Ian in my top 3, and think, it was really difficult because the reason they were all those 5 people were there is because they deserve it. Right? I mean, all 5 of those people you could make a real argument for, but for a guy that was on the outside looking in at this time last year to now be a top 30, top 35 player in the world, top 20. I mean, he's made huge strides, and so it was really tough for me not to put him in. So shout out Ian. I did have Jake number 1 because Jake. We talked about it before. Of the twins, I think a lot of people thought Jackson may have had more potential in singles. Wrong, at least this season. Jake has just turned out to be a phenomenon, and I had him number 1. I had Hunter Thorne number 2.
Yeah, it was tough for me to leave him out because I loved him. I had him on my top 10 early in the year,
and I think he came from further back. I'm not sure on that rankings wise, and he's just he's now made himself a top 15 player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think he's 12th. I mean, that kind of rise with this kind of talent level. I mean, it's pretty astronomical. And then I think I had Allen number 3 because I mean, the guy won 2 brackets. I mean, come on. Like, the fact that I didn't have him number 1, I thought was a little crazy because considering where he was coming into the season, the guy wins 2 singles brackets. Puts himself in the top 10. I think he's ranked 8th going into the Worlds. I mean, like, that's crazy, man. Like, and so there's an argument to be made for every single person that was on that list, but I believe that was my top 3.
By the way, can we just take just a quick moment to just talk about Alex Rawls real quick?
Yeah.
Because
under the radar.
Oh my gosh. I was looking back on it today, right? Because, doing my MVP ballot, and I'm looking at everybody, and all of a sudden I'm like, dang, Alex Rawls has been totally, I feel like, just kind of put on the back burner this year. And maybe not. Maybe it's just me and my world and you and I in this show. I mean, maybe on other shows, maybe people have been talking about him all year. I don't know. I haven't heard a lot about him, but I could be wrong on that. But as far as our little circle goes and our little world, I feel like he's been on kind of the back burner. Here's a dude who actually won a national earlier this year.
Yep.
I mean, he won a national in singles. He won a major singles title this year in professional cornhole. And he is tied for 2nd in the world. But yet I feel like we've talked about the story of Allen so much more. And we've talked about Justin Burton Jr. And we've talked about Mark Richards, and his rise again. And obviously Tony Smith. It's like, it's somewhere Alex has got to be, just sitting back there like.
I think he might enjoy it in a way. I think it might help him. I think last year, because he was on television as much as anybody last season. Whether it was singles or doubles, it seemed like every other time we had a major broadcast, he was on it. And I think this may have helped him a little bit to not, like, hey, I'm still here, and kind of given him a little bit of a push forward, like, hey, I'm still here, guys. I'm still winning. Even if I don't win the title, I'm still making Final 8s. I'm still making Final 4s. I'm still right here. And I think it may have helped him a little bit this season to kind of slide a little bit under the radar. And how a guy, like you said, can be tied for 2nd in the world and be under the radar speaks volumes about what we're not doing right, first off. But
crazy, right?
Yeah, it's
tied for second with Tony Smith, who we've talked about all year. All year we've talked about.
Do you want to be that be the segue into the MVP voting, or do you want to take another one before that?
Yeah, you want to knock out rookie real quick? I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's much debate on this one. I could be wrong. I mean, you can make a case for a lot of these guys. So my 1, 2, and 3 in rookie, Justin Burton Jr., Fisher Hamilton, and I love Fisher, but I felt like JBJ was a bit more consistent, higher in the rankings, obviously. And then number 3, I think, is up for debate. I just like to watch him play, and I really respect what he did. And he put up big numbers this year. Number 3 for me was Logan Chamberlain. Do you remember your 3?
Same 3, different order. I believe I had Fisher 1.
Oh, okay.
JBJ 2, Logan 3.
Okay, so maybe there will be some debate on that.
I just think Fisher was there a lot, man, and I counted doubles a lot as well. And I feel like JBJ had a stronger beginning of the season. Yeah. And not that he tapered way off, but there was a little bit of a taper. And I think that Fisher got better as the season went along. And once again, a guy that seemed like he was on a broadcast every other time that we had a major broadcast. So
Mm-hmm.
and the shootouts carried weight for me, and making broadcasts there carried weight for me. And so that's like, once again, I thought it was a coin flip between the two of them, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, that's almost what I did in my head was like, you know, it was really a coin flip. But I had Fisher 1, I had JBJ 2, and I had Logan 3.
Okay, so that brings us now to the MVP. It also brings us, because of you just saying that, it brings me to a point that I wanted to bring up. So you and I were just talking about this. Hang on, let me bring up the email so I can get this wording exactly right. So you and I were just talking about this a couple of weeks ago, right? And I made the comment that I wanted to see. I felt like I needed to see. I think we're going to the final shootout in Canton. And I said, I feel for some reason, as good as he's been, I feel like I wanted to see another win by Justin Burton Jr. in Canton to maybe help nudge him up in my MVP balloting, right? But then we get the email from Trey. And so I feel like I totally had to switch my thinking. So it says ACL MVP is the ACL pro who has the most outstanding season across pro singles and pro doubles at ACL national events in 2023. Pro shootout and open performances should not be taken into consideration for this award. So that being said, Bernie, I mean, it made it a little bit more difficult for me because I like you, I was kind of taking some of those things into consideration.
Yeah, I know.
So
I mean,
so all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, I gotta like redo my thinking. So with that in mind, I just wanted to say that because that might clarify a little bit on who I chose in MVP. But that made it tough because I felt like I was kind of taking some of that into consideration, and maybe next year it will. I think maybe there might be some tweaking. I feel like pro shootout should be part of your thinking and part of your analysis.
Players like Jake Gore, I think because the Jake Gores, the Ian Crippses, like players like that can't play, so it's not an even, like, you don't know like, what would their season be like if they were allowed to play, right? So
yeah, good point.
And then my problem with the shootouts is also, if someone does really well week 1, week 2, all of a sudden they're done, and then someone like Fisher Hamilton said, like, in doubles was always on TV, but was losing, but was making finals. But in your head, you're like, wow, they're always there, they're always there, they're always there. But it doesn't matter because they're losing all these, where these people that have won can't play anymore. They're done. And so you're losing that. And so I struggled with it. And to be honest, I don't know if I followed that guideline the way I should have in some of my voting, for sure. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, that changed mine. So, because honestly, Mark Richards picking up a singles shootout win this year, I thought was big. It was a big hurdle for him to get over, and he did. But I had to take that out. So anyway, let's get to our MVP if you want to do it. You want me to go first again?
Sure.
So I kind of I got a little bit analytical on this, and somewhere Anthony Ione is going to be extremely impressed with me on this. And now I don't know where. Here it is. So based on all the points, I mean, this was so tough for me. I mean, basically for me, it was coming down to Mark Richards, Tony Smith, and Justin Burton Jr. And again, just in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so close, right? And they all had wins, right? Mark picked up that last, singles win, which really all of a sudden vaulted him to number one, obviously, in the world, and really took a lot of our, bandwidth as far as thinking of who was going to be MVP. So what I had to do is so here's the other thing, is doubles, right? You've got to figure in doubles. Like I feel like even with our power rankings, I always skew towards giving more significance to singles. I just do. I don't know if it's my sports background or what. I just give more significance and more power to singles. So I tried to weigh both singles and doubles equally the same. So I'm like, how am I going to do this? So I'm looking back on all the wins and the Final Fours and TV appearances. And anyway, so I kind of looked at the composite score. So again, Anthony Ione, dude, you seriously, like, give me a big hug and tell me how proud you are of me when you hear this. So taking all the scoring, right, all the point system and everything, I came up with a composite score, and that's basically how I did my. That's basically how I got to my top three.
Right.
So my MVP for this year. Number 3 was Mark Richards.
Yeah.
Number 2, Justin Burton Jr. And my MVP this year, my number 1 vote for ACL MVP is Tony Smith. If you look at the composite scores, Tony Smith, with my math, had actually because of the success on double side, and I mean, dude made 5 Final Fours. That's incredible.
I hear you.
So Tony Smith, and again, you know, I love Mark, right? I really like watching him play. And Justin Burton Jr., I was just bragging on him about what an athlete he looks like when he plays. But at the end of the year, when I got to pick one MVP, I loved watching Tony play. So dynamic. I loved his presence. I love what he did. I love that he changed bags, the adjustments he made. So Tony Smith, I put down as my MVP.
I'm with you. I looked at it a little bit differently. So I started thinking, all right, pro doubles, who has to carry more weight? And if you look at it, Hunter Thorne's 12th, Logan Chamberlain's 14th. Those 2 guys had players that are in the top 15 playing alongside them. Mark Richards had to carry more weight in doubles. And they still have a very solid doubles team.
Oh, right? Yeah.
What's their ranking? 2nd, 3rd?
I will look it up. I've got it here. Give me just a second. I think they are 4th. Yeah, they're 4th.
They're 4th. So they're 4th, and he's carrying. And no disrespect to Philip Lopez Jr. This is not a shot at Philip Lopez Jr., but Mark's doing more with less, just from a numbers perspective. And that's why I made him my MVP, because he's obviously in the second half of the season, he's really become the beast that he was last year, right? And then he's carrying more weight in doubles. And so I know it sounds bad, and Philip's probably going to punch me, but when you look at the players that the other players are playing with, they're top 15 players, almost top 10 players themselves. So you're not having to carry the same weight. You're getting essentially the same thing back that you're putting down there, right? If you're Tony Smith.
I totally get what you're saying.
You know, and so I kind of went at it from a little bit different, and that's what gave me the kind of impetus to kind of put Mark as the MVP. And the second half of the season, I think he's really come on, and I think even the players would admit he's Mark Richards again and probably the best player in the world. And I had Tony 2. And I believe I had JBJ 3, but I'll have to look. No, I think I had Alex Rawls 3.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And because I put so much weight on singles, like you were talking about, and you're talking about number 2 player in the world, who once again, Trey Birchfield not really adding up to what Trey once was, not to say, but once again, Alex is carrying more weight in those matches and still, being a very productive doubles team. So I looked at it a little different, because I understand that pro doubles rankings mean a lot, but when the other player you're playing with is almost ranked the same as you are you carrying the same load? And you're not. And so I think to have that level of success in doubles speaks volumes about the player that's the higher rated player, right?
Yes.
And so that's kind of where my head was at, and that's why I had Mark 1, Tony 2, and Alex 3.
Yeah, no, I like it, Bernie, and that does make sense. And again, with the doubles weight, I just couldn't. I don't want to say get past, but it was tough for me to overlook the fact that Tony Smith is part of the number 1. He's the number 2 ranked player in the world, single side, and part of the number 1 doubles team in the world. And at the end of the day, I just could not. That was kind of a deciding factor for me.
You ready for my analogy? And I kind of went sports analogy with this. Remember back in the 80s when we were growing up, and John McEnroe, like in 84, had like the greatest season in the history of tennis at that time. Was number 1 in the world, and was also the number 1 doubles player in the world with Peter Fleming. Right? Who's Peter Fleming? Exactly. Who's Peter Fleming? And McEnroe was just that much better. He was dragging more weight than some of the other players, and that's why he was number 1 in doubles.
Yeah,
that's why he was ranked that way. And it's just, that's kind of how I looked at it. It's like, and look, the other players are going to be super mad at me when I say all this, and it's not a shot. It's just when you look at the numbers, that's what plays out. That other player is having to carry more weight in those tournaments. So I think you have to give them a little bit of a nudge for that, because Jake Trzynski, what's he, 13th?
He is, 13th. So Tony's
playing with a top 10 player in essence. And so that's just different. I mean, you're not carrying the same weight that someone else is, and that's why I had it the way I had it. So I mean, people can disagree and be upset, but that's why.
No, I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. I really do. And again, just going back real quick to the composite score, because I was able to find it. So basically, this is an average of doubles and singles in points. So you got Tony Smith at 1846, Justin Burton Jr. 1820, and Mark Richards at 1814. When you average out all the numbers, doubles and
as a matter of fact, here I've got.
So.
Let me see if I can pull this up. If I can actually read it.
Take that, Professor.
Yeah. Let's see.
Seriously, he probably doesn't listen to the show.
Yeah, probably not. He's probably got family time that he's got to deal with. Philip Lopez Jr. is 53rd in the singles rank.
Like I said, I don't hate what you're saying.
And Trey Birchfield's down in the 80s and 90s right now. So those two players are dragging a lot in doubles. Comparatively speaking,
Mark's probably. I mean, you could, like you said, you can make the argument that he's doing the most with the least.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where I came at it from. So, and then, these Trey and Philip Lopez Jr. are probably going to hate me now, but I mean, it's not a knock on them. It's just, they haven't had the best season in singles, and maybe they're just, when they're playing doubles, they're on the side they like the best, and maybe they're playing better, but that's where I came at it from.
Teams this year has been huge. Kind of flirted with it last year in the ACL. I've given my thoughts on teams last year. I think it was a good beta kind of testing system for what teams could be. This year, off the charts. I think as we go on season after season, we'll get a little bit more buy-in from the players.
Yeah.
But to have 16 teams, 16 players, all 16 teams from around the country. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, it really is going to be special. I feel like this year a little clunky with the best of 7. Next year they're gonna the league is gonna tweak the scoring. The problem is that what we didn't foresee was having a television broadcast with 2 teams going head to head, a best of 7, and you've got 7 matches, and what happens if it's 4-0? And we're only an hour and 10 minutes in the broadcast. Well, shit. Now we got 50 minutes we got to cover on an actually televised broadcast. But it's so funny because that's been the great thing about being with this league now in my 4th season and your 6th or 7th season, whatever, is just watching it grow. It's still so young. NASCAR went through this. Football went through this. Baseball. I mean, sports still to this day. Look at what baseball did. Baseball is still reinventing itself. 100 years later. Into the sport, and so that's what we're seeing the ACL do, is make adjustments. So next year they're going to have to make an adjustment. But that being said, I mean, to have these 16 teams from 16 regions / cities across the nation was so much fun, and to see the spirit, to see the camaraderie, to see the swag, to see the excitement on game day, the huddles, the timeouts, the coaching, having to set lineups. It really was pretty cool to watch. And now we are down to our final 8. So the matchups, for those of you who don't know, we're down to our quarterfinals, top 8 teams. So Pennsylvania will play Carolina, Ohio will play Florida, California plays Missouri, and Arizona plays Texas. So it's really going to be a lot of fun. All those games, each semifinal and the championship will be on CBS Sports Network, and I'm looking forward to it. It'll be exciting to watch it and to broadcast it.
Yeah, my thing on it, there still needs to be more buy-in from the pros on this. And when you look at other individualized sports, they've done the team concept. I mean, if you look at golf, one of the reasons Live Golf was so successful was their team concept that they went at. Bull riding has a team concept. I mean, it's out there in other sports. This isn't something that came out of the blue and only cornhole is deciding to do this. I mean, this exists in other areas as well, and I think there needs to be a little
teams. You're right, that's a big one.
There needs to be more buy-in from the pros, and I think when you look at the teams that have lasted to this point, especially say the California Slingers, right? I think their team buy-in made them better than the collection of their parts, right? I think when you look at Tony Smith won 1 match in doubles in team concept.
I know, crazy, right?
Right, their best, one of the best players on the planet. He's your main guy. And he's let you down all season, but everyone else found a way to step up. And I think they had a little bit more buy-in. I think Ohio kind of had that same buy-in. I mean, I think there's some teams that didn't have that buy-in and didn't have that care that maybe didn't perform as well as they would have liked to.
Yeah. For sure. A couple of headlines coming out of this, by the way. Something I've noticed, and I'm surely you'll remember this, but earlier this year we had a broadcast where so teams get to set their lineups. So again, it's 16 teams, 16 players, but you have two basically alternate players. So only 14 players play. It's all doubles. So you have 7 doubles teams for one team that take on the 7 doubles teams of the other team. So, and again, that's best of 7. And the captains set their lineups. Now, it's kind of a snake lineup. So you get to choose who you're going to throw out there first. Then I get to choose who I'm going to throw against you. Then you pick, then I pick. Then that's how we go. Yeah. But still, the captains choose. And you still have a chance, as you go along, if you want to try and front load your lineup and try and get some wins early, or if you want to, maybe stack and maybe, you put a couple of your top players in the middle. But we did see a couple of captains or whoever set the lineups try and backload their teams and get burned a little bit, right? Yep. Like you don't want to put your top 2 players necessarily in that 5th, 6th, or 7th, because what happens if you lose the first couple, right? Or you fall down 3-0. So that being said, we saw that a couple of times. So I can't believe when I was going over the lineups today that I saw this. So Pennsylvania, the Ringers, they've got Justin Burton Jr. and Devin Harbaugh, 2 of the top players in the world.
Yep.
6th in their lineup. 6th. And then to me, here's one that's marginal, but still Arizona, same thing. Jeff Reynolds, who really had a great season, right?
Yep.
Jeff Reynolds and Ty Lopez, really good player. 7th in their lineup. Dead last.
Yeah.
And here's
last I don't really like, but I get the middle. I do understand.
And then one more for you. I mean, there's several others. One more for you just for the sake of time. Florida, the Freeze, Chris Kingsbury and Jeremy Frazier, 7th in the lineup. I mean, we saw this happen. Again, I get it. If it comes down to game 6 or game 7, you know what? I get it. And I'll eat it. But man, you got to get some wins to get there. And you hate it if this thing ends. If it ends 4-1.
I hear you.
And you didn't pick up a win earlier?
But for argument's sake, Jeff, you look at what the Ringers did, and they had Devin and Justin going out early in the season, and they started off awful. And they switched their lineup, then won 10 straight. So maybe that lineup switch and placing people in different positions has worked out, because most of these things have not gone 4-0, right? Most of them have finished in 5 or 6 matches.
Still,
so I mean,
a lot of them finished in 5, and that means 6 and 7 don't even. So you can have your top teams not even figure in the decision.
I hear you, but it's hard to argue with what the Ringers did when they were the best team.
Yeah, it is true. They finished with the best record overall.
It obviously worked, taking their top. Now
but did they have Justin?
I would have split them up.
Did they have them 6th all year though?
No, I'm saying they had them up early in the season, and they kept losing matches, and then they dropped them down and realized we need to win these swing matches late because we're losing them all the time. Like we might win 1 early or maybe 2 early, and then we're getting deep and we're losing our matches because of it. Let's switch it up. Now, me personally, I would have split those 2 guys up and had them play with another strong player, and now you've got 2 really strong teams instead of 1. But hey, it's worked for them. I mean, I think we've also seen that throughout, where you have these teams and they're putting these big super teams together. Well, that just gives you 1 super team. Great. You've won 1 point out of the 4 you need. Maybe you split them up and you get 2 points. I don't know. Like it's just.
No, I'm with you on that. Yep.
It's part of the process of learning how the whole thing works, but it's hard to argue with the Ringers because they made some adjustments. Now, look, there's certain teams that made 0 adjustments all season. Kentucky Colonels, talking to you. They still made the playoffs, but there's a lot of talent there. But yet, I don't know, maybe some adjustments here or there, and maybe they could have won a few more matches.
Kentucky didn't make the playoffs, but
they didn't.
Kentucky did not. No.
Right. So you made no adjustments, and you had tons of talent. Might be on, maybe some adjustments. But that's what I mean. That's where the buy-in comes, because it's like, well, who cares?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't mean. The more buy-in we get from the players, and I don't know if that has to be incentivized or how that buy-in has to come about, but there needs to be something. Because
they're going to have incentive at Worlds, because now the real money's on the line. I mean, there was a little bit of money, on the line for all these matches throughout the year, but now this is where the real money's going to be on the line for the championship.
Yeah, so, and it's so hard for some of these players.
I'm surprised they're backloading.
Yeah, it's it's funny how some of these players, because they have to monetarily think in such short-sighted terms, like, shootout, for example, and teams, for example, there's money there, but you don't get the money till the end. So, for them that are having to worry about traveling, like it doesn't make much sense for them to care when they have to worry about money right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's hard for people to have long vision about some of the money, because it's a lot of travel between April and now. Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, so we'll see what happens as it gets tweaked. But I mean, I love the process, and I love the teams that get into it. And you can tell it's so much more fun. You have to feel it as an announcer when the team cares. Playing against a team that doesn't really care, right? Like, you can see it. You can see it
California.
On the 100%.
You mentioned them. They were so much fun to watch. Yeah, so much fun. All right, we got to keep moving. One other quick teams note: Dayton Weber, who instantly became a sensation when he appeared on the court during Super Bowl. He is the quad amputee that many of you saw when we were in Milwaukee. He is an incredible story, incredible guy. He is in the starting lineup for the Carolina Coasters. So we will see Dayton Weber again competing during the team's quarterfinals, and hopefully longer. Again, all that's going to be on CBS Sports Network at Worlds next week. So that'd be a great storyline. Okay, we got to keep moving. Super Bowl, just real quick. Did have some changes to Super Bowl as we expected. Unfortunately, Jason Turner, who longtime Los Angeles Dodgers player, won a World Series with the Dodgers, now plays with the Boston Red Sox. He won the first Super Bowl down in Scottsdale, and we figured because it's right in the middle of their season, probably a risk, and a chance he couldn't play. Sure enough. Obviously, he's got to be in the starting lineup for the Red Sox, so he's not going to be able to compete in Super Bowl. So we will not have Justin Turner. And then another one that we're going to miss is Tim Settle, defensive lineman for the Buffalo Bills. He beat Deion Dawkins in the final. It was great. It was in Topeka, Kansas, on that Super Bowl broadcast. That was awesome. He won't make it, but Chad Ochocinco will still be there. Alexander Madison, new starting running back for the Vikings, will be there. Sonia Richards-Ross, Olympic champion, she's going to be there. And as an alternate, Shemar Moore, who I'm not sure there's a celebrity who digs cornhole more than Shemar Moore. As we talked about last year, had the road to Ramal City. We had an event there. He's totally renovated his entire backyard. So he's got a pool, a basketball court, and a sweet-ass cornhole setup in his backyard. So Shemar will be there playing with Trey Birchfield. It's still going to be a big lineup, and that'll be fun to watch. And that's going to actually
don't you have to kind of make them the favorites now? Because Shemar plays a lot.
Yeah, I thought Chad Ochocinco was pretty good.
I thought he was pretty good,
but yes,
consistency level about being able to get points in each round. I think Shemar has to be the favorite going in, because he's not going to have that. He's not going to have 0 rounds. Where some of the celebs might have a good round, but then have a 0 here or there. Shemar's not going to have that, so you got to kind of make him the favorite, I think.
Can Shemar battle the nerves of being on national TV? I think
if there's any one of those people that really relishes being on TV fully with their face and everything, like some of the athletes get kind of hidden by uniform, especially football players. I think Shemar Moore is all about some Shemar Moore. I think he will love.
He's only been on national TV between SWAT and Criminal Minds. He's only been on national TV on a hit series for about 15 years in a row now, something like that.
Yeah. I think he's going to be all about it. Yeah.
All right, we got to get to it. You ready? We still need to do on, off, and in, and we still need to do our power rankings, and we've got about less than 10 minutes left.
Sweet.
You ready for on, off, and in?
Let's do it.
It's the fastest growing segment in the cornhole podcast world. Everyone's talking about it.
Everyone's all in on this.
Yeah, there might actually be 16 people. We talk about our fabulous 12 who listen every week. Shout out. Maybe there's 16 or so people. I've Rosie Streaker, one of the top female pros, who is also executive producer. I guess you can call her behind the scenes, posting all the podcasts. She emailed and she said she loved it. Trey actually shot me a text and said, by the way, love on, off, and in. So that's good.
Hey, man, positive feedback makes a person feel good, right?
Yeah.
It's nice every now and then.
All right. So on, off, and in. So again, it's kind of a hit or miss thing. We talk about things where we feel like maybe we're right, it's on the board, things that we totally missed that are off the board, and the things that we are just dead right on in the hole. So without further ado, we really need some music or something. But
yeah, we need some on, off, and in music. We need to get music.
You're going first.
I'll go first. Why not?
Okay.
All right. So should I go off the board first and lead to in the hole, or start within the hole? What do you think?
I like to do on, then off, then in. However, for the sake of entertainment, if you feel like you need to switch it up,
you know what? I'm going to go off the board first. I'm going to go up. I'm going to go from negative to positive.
Okay.
Kind of in a weird sort of way. Back at the beginning of the season, I thought Cheyenne Bubenheim was going to make a pretty big jump in the singles rankings. Right? I thought, she's a top 20 player. I didn't know if she was ready for top 10, but I kind of thought she was right there on the verge. I don't know if she is now. I just think some of the top players with the variety in their game have proven that they can take it to another level. They have more shots. If they need a roll, they've got a roll. If they need, there's just more variety to their game. And I don't know, because her game is still kind of two-dimensional in a way, I don't know if she can crack that. So I'm going to say that's my off the board. I still love Cheyenne as a player. I think when she gets hot, she can be, but she has to, when you talk being on that level for that long, it's almost impossible to stay that focused for that long a period of time and not have some bad rounds and some bad games, because she just doesn't have the variety yet to be able to compete with the elite of the game. Not yet. We'll see what happens.
And just for clarification, you're talking competing not with the women, but at the pro singles level.
Pro singles level. Yeah, pro singles level. Yeah. On the board, we had talked earlier that, the 5-tool player was kind of taking over the game, right? That it's going, the game's getting that way. Some of these other players are going to get left behind. I think I'm on the board there. I don't know if it's not in the hole, but it's not completely off the board. I mean, Matt Guy, Damon Dennis, Jimmy McGuff. I mean, some of these guys are still, Cheyenne, still a top 30 player. It's more of an old school kind of game. They're still there, right? And you look at Damon and Jimmy winning a shootout. You look at Matt Guy's won a bracket and single. I mean, they're still competitive, right? But if you look at the overall trend of the game, you still got this 5-tool player that seems to be the type of player that can even Mark Richards added a rollback, right? Yeah. I mean, even he saw that coming and kind of added some things. So
absolutely,
I'm going to say I'm on the board there.
It's allowed the rise of the term hybrid player. So right. I think we're absolutely on the, or you both of us on the board on that. Yeah.
On the board. Yep. And then in the hole, and it's not taking a shot at this person because I still think he's one of the best players in the world, but I caught a lot of heat at the beginning of the season when I had my original power rankings and I did not have Matt Guy in my top 10. Well, here we are. The season is over, and Matt Guy is not in the top 10 in the rankings.
Good one, brother. That's a good one.
So, I mean, who knows?
You were in the hole.
He wins worlds. He's probably back in the top 10 and makes me look like an idiot. But
we'll talk next week. Yeah.
Yeah. For right now, that was a good call.
Yep, I like that. You so far still have worlds to go, but so far, yes, you're in the hole on that one. All right, so here's my on, off, and in. So we'll start with on the board, Ocho Day, and I've been kind of talking about this a little bit. And again, I feel like I'm on the board with this. I feel like I might be right, but I would appreciate your feedback on this. I'm not sure if I can really think of an analogy to do. I don't want to disrespect other sports, but I feel like, and this may sound funny to people who are just casual watchers of cornhole on ESPN and CBS, but I feel like cornhole's kind of graduated from Ocho Day. Like I was writing down some of the things we'll see: pillow fighting, slippery stairs, chase tag we saw in the past, lawnmower racing, air guitar, which I enjoyed broadcasting. Right, it was fun to do. It was kind of sticky. It was kind of fun to do. But do we really feel like cornhole has is still with that. And again, those are all fun sports. I mean, it's a fun thing to watch, but I feel like cornhole has kind of separated itself from that. And I'm not gonna give up on that. That's just how I feel. I almost feel like it's like the guy who, you go to college and you hang out at your college bars and you graduate and you come back, a couple of years later and you still go to the same bars and you're having fun and still drinking everything. And all of a sudden you come back to those bars again when you're like 28, you're like, man, yeah, starting to feel a little bit older, you know? And then you come back and you're like 32 and you're a grown man and you got a job and you go to those same bars. And now, all right, it's time to move on. Like let the kids be kids, let them have fun. We all did the same thing, but now you kind of graduated to a different bar, right? Time to go to a different bar and hang out with the big boys. And that's kind of how I feel with cornhole. And I just, I don't know, I've been following the sport for a while. And again, no disrespect to these other ones, but I kind of feel like it's time for us to move on from that. I almost feel like, believe it or not, cornhole has graduated from that and should be thought of at a higher level than some of those other.
I'm with you. Unfortunately, I think we found this weird place. Like, I think we've graduated from that, but I don't think we're top four, right? We're not one of the major sports.
No.
So we exist in this kind of netherworld of our own, which is kind of tough, actually. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And that's why I feel like I'm kind of on the board, because I may be missing something too. This could be huge for the sport. Maybe being a part of Ocho Day gives us just incredible visibility that we could never deny. So I'm not privy to those numbers, so I don't know. That's why I'm just kind of feel like I'm just kind of on the board. But you get what I mean. You know, pillow fighting, slippery stairs, chase tag.
Silly.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, my off the board. And somewhere Trey Ryder and Anthony Ione are going to love this. I'll finally fess up to it. Brett Guy and Eric Davis. I could not have been more wrong. We are talking about the two-time defending pro shootout champions, right? Mm-hmm. And at the beginning of the year, I remember this specifically. I was listening to Trey and Mish and to Anthony's podcast, and they were talking about players to watch this year with the shootouts and with and even in pro doubles, and they didn't include Brett Guy and Eric Davis. And I'm like, how in the world? I texted all of them. I'm like, how could you guys not? They're two-time defending champions. How could you not even have them in your top 10? I don't even think Anthony had them in the top 15. Right. Sure enough, who doesn't even qualify for the pro shootout this year? Brett Guy and Eric Davis, two-time defending champions, don't even qualify. So I was definitely off the board on that one. I admit it. You're right, Trey. Anthony, Mish, I get it. All right. My in the hole. And Bernie, I hate to say I told you so, jeans. I absolutely am going to win this argument every day, jeans versus khakis, right? In the latest study that just came out by Real Men, Real Style, which of course, as we all know, is one of the top, leading websites, in men's style. And
funded by Levi's.
Right? I mean, we all read it, right? In their most recent study, which was also updated, by the way, on July 21st. Just a few days ago, they did a study to try and find out which clothing items women find most attractive on a man. Right?
For sure.
Now, this is a very scientific study. The writer even said that he interviewed a bunch of different women. Now, it's okay. Normally, you'd like to see maybe a number. Like 1,000 people were interviewed or 500, but apparently he interviewed so many people, it's probably 1 million or something like that. So that's why he said, "Hey, I interviewed a bunch of women." So here were the top 3. Here were the top 3 out of the 11. For some reason, he did 11. Footwear, number 1. Number 2, timepiece, watches. Number 3, perfectly fitting jeans. You know what was not on this list? Khakis. Khakis wasn't on the list.
I get that.
Jeans are better than khakis. So you and Mish, get your baggy khakis on and just go somewhere where they don't play cornhole and just wear your baggy khakis. I'm going to hang out with the cool kids and wear my jeans. And
the argument wasn't what women find more. The argument was never what women find more attractive. The argument was what's more comfortable. I'm sticking with mine. For me, it's more comfortable. Now, do I agree? Especially the first two. I've actually heard the first two before from women, that shoes and superficial things. They hate the fact that men are very superficial about looks. But let's be honest, they're remarkably superficial about look.
And jeans are better than khakis all the time.
Yeah, because
I am in the hole on that, and now I have a scientific study to prove it.
Yeah. Women do tend to like good fitting jeans over the dad bod, wearing his white New Balance sneakers with his terrible
yeah.
khakis. No, I get it. I get what look they're talking about they don't like.
We got to go. We got 10 seconds left. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for watching. We are so looking forward to Worlds. Thanks to everybody who comes up and says hi to us, and all 12 of you who listen to the show. We will see you all in Rock Hill. Dude, can't wait to see you. It's going to be a great week.
Yeah, man. It's going to be a good time.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye. I win on the jeans, by the way.